Welcome to the Common Geeking Program, a book club podcast where each episode, 3 of us read up on a topic, then discuss it from geeky, and some would say, nerdy perspective. This week, I'm your host, Ryan Mossbarger, and we will be discussing Never Too Young to Die, and the theme is going to be about obvious franchises that never really got off the ground. I'm joined by 2 people, each of whom has selected a domain they think connects to our topic and theme this week. They are...
Hi, I'm Jahnavi. And I selected the book Sunshine by Robin McKinley, which I picked not because the creator intended it for it to be a series, but that everybody, or it seems like close to everybody who read it, assumed that it just was, and was flabbergasted when the author was like, no, that's it.
What was this?
It's the book called Sunshine by Robin McKinley.
Oh, and by the way, listeners, it's me, King Coder, bringing you the truth once again from Truthville Truth Station at Truth Planet. You know it's me. I will be representing the Dark Universe, which was the proposed cinematic universe by Universal Pictures. That would they were planning to take all like the classic like monster movies.
It was their answer to the Marvel comic book movie.
Yeah,
like, hey,
I'll talk more about it in like a bit,
and
like there's some ideas there. There's some ideas, yeah. But we'll talk more about why. Well, you know, as you said, it just didn't connect with audiences.
It just it didn't connect. It is unfortunate. It could have been something. There was opportunity there for some really good nostalgia 1920s like feeling type of B movie stuff. And
yeah, I got a lot of things to say about it, but
it didn't work out. But yeah, let's move on to the summary. So Never Too Young to Die is a 1986 action movie starring John Stamos as the titular Lance Stargrove.
Of the John Stamos.
The John Stamos, sorry. The singer Vanity as the femme fatale Danja Deering. And Gene Simmons as the deadly and enigmatic Velvet von Ragnar. The basic plot is that Lance's father was a 007 type character, you know, man of mystery, made all the more real by the fact it's played by a lesser Bond, George Lazenby.
Not lesser, but killed, you know.
He's lesser.
More like Lazenby, am I right?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Fuck him, he's probably dead now, yeah.
What? No, George Lazenby is still fucking alive.
Here on Common Geeking Program, we enjoy disrespecting the dead.
Yeah. Next up, your mom. No.
Yeah, but George Lazenby's character is killed by Ragnar using his, it's all kind of ended up being like a trick of some kind. It was all a trap just to kill Stargrove. Stargrove is kind of like a weird, he's like 007, but if 007 didn't have MI6, like, I don't understand what organization he is, like, part of.
You know what? I think there was no organization.
John Stamos doesn't need an organization.
Yeah, just the American government.
He's the John Stamos organization, the department, the DOS, Department of Stamos.
The U.S. Department of Kicking Your Ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, his dad, he's killed by Ragnar. So his son, Lance Stargrove, a gymnast, decides to take up the mantle with the help of Danja, who is played by Vanity, who I think is either was fucking his dad or was his apprentice. They don't really clear that up at all. Either she worked the stables or she worked George Lazenby. I'm not 100% sure.
I thought it was like both. I thought she like
yes, probably both.
We just assume from action movie tropes that it's both.
Yeah, but and then we're both totally cool about like the whole father-son thing.
Well, they had to fulfill the classic movie trope of crossing swords with your own father. So I mean, you know, you have to. So yeah, with the help of Danja, who, like I said, some form of apprentice to his father, and his roommate Cliff, who fits a Q-like role, together they take on Ragnar and his plot to irradiate the water supply of Southern California and start a Road Wars type apocalyptic wasteland.
I have to ask, do you think that this was like commentary on the fluoridation debate?
Oh, definitely. It was probably some solid.
Are you saying that Ragnar was a fluoride advocate?
No, he was. He is a metaphor for a fluoride advocate.
No, I mean it's a good way of looking at it. I don't want to say no because it's really great.
Listen, Ryan, I know, like you analyze, it's your program right now. But if you can't see the genius and the subtlety of Never Too Young to Die,
this was an anti-fluoridation movie.
It's a lot more than that. We can't even cover all the layers.
Fluoridation is socialism. Excuse me.
The layers that Gil Bettman put into this,
I mean, there is. I will say that there is a possibility that the director in this was like, you know what? Fuck fluoride. Let's make a movie about fluoride. It was directed by Gil Bettman, who does not have a Wikipedia page, so I don't know if he did anything else after this.
That's rough, buddy.
But yeah, so he's trying to, if I remember correctly, irradiate the water supply to start a post-apocalyptic wasteland of Southern California.
I guess, because
it's all for money and shit, blah, blah, blah. This movie is wonderful for the same reasons that it's very problematic. It's like 80s fucking concentrate. It's a shot of LSD to the retina. It is full of the shit.
It's a very hetero understanding of what drag is.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah.
it's I don't
it's
I
not
can't.
even it's not even playful.
We'll get into some of the offensive parts later. But yeah, it's fucking 80s. It's got mullets. It's got action. It's got awkward chase scenes.
It's got sequins.
Yeah, it's got Asian stereotypes. It's got weird sex scenes, and probably the most bigoted handling of a transsexual person on script.
I'm pretty sure if we try, we could find a more modern, much worse.
Maybe. But yeah, I love this movie, and I wanted to talk about it.
I just want to say, like, your home collection must be amazing. You got the Miami Connection.
Miami Connection,
and you got two
Never Too Young to Die.
You got a great shelf someplace. I just gotta say.
Yeah. But I love this movie not for the awful parts, but for the good parts of it being just a crazy ass 80s film. And I wanted to talk about it and talk about its failed future. To me, it seems obvious this was supposed to kick off a franchise.
Oh, obviously.
It is. It's like distilled Kid Bond. Like, they wanted to do like a Kid Bond movie. They probably couldn't get the rights, and it all worked out.
You're right. This is James Bond, teenage spy.
This is technically before John Stamos really took off.
Also,
wait, are you saying this is a prequel to Full House?
Yeah, this is before he was on Full House. This is before he really took off, but he was on General Hospital at this time. But he was still like a rising star. He was like an 80s heartthrob in the era of 80s heartthrobs.
Was this part of
meaning the 80s?
The part of the what?
The Stamos-verse? All James Stamos' work is in the same universe?
It could be. Maybe this is before he met up with his nieces and nephews.
Exactly. I think this is... I propose that you're wrong. This is not a failed franchise. This is the prequel to Full House.
Prequel to Full House. All right, it's possible. But yeah, this is before he took off star. He was definitely a rising star at this point. He was still technically famous. And Vanity and Gene Simmons were both, Vanity maybe to a lesser extent, but both were big stars in music, not necessarily known for their acting. So maybe that's how they got him in. It's like, hey, you want to star in this weird movie? Gene Simmons has noted about this movie. It's like, I will never not accept another acting role without reading a script again, like several years after this came out.
I love it.
Its failure can only be classified as epic in every standard way of putting it out. And even the Wikipedia article, which I'm staring at right now, you could be considered skeletal at best.
Got like a cast,
it does not have
a line about
it just
reception.
Has the cast. It has the reception, which is a straight up copy paste from Rotten Tomatoes. It has nothing about what happened in the movie. It's pretty great.
No, yeah.
The author for the Wikipedia article did not want to watch the movie.
Yeah, did not want to watch the movie.
Was not interested.
It was a step too far to watch this movie in actuality.
But this is the hard-hitting journalism that we do here on Common Geek Program.
I'm doing the stories, the hidden stories that the man doesn't want you to know about.
Yeah, we're telling you the truth.
Yeah, I'm a truth seeker, and because I'm talking about the truth, I'm a truth finder. So, strap in for some interesting conversations about problematic stereotypes of transsexual people.
Well, it's not even just that it was supposed to be transsexual, because he said bisexual, he said I'm a man and a woman. I think several descriptions of the movie use the term hermaphrodite. Like, it was
he's a hermaphrodite, I believe.
Well, the question is, at this time, was hermaphrodite? I don't know the nomenclature, but I believe hermaphrodite. And I could be wrong. Was hermaphrodite ever an official term?
Well, hermaphrodite like stems from like biology. It's really a biological term, which is why it's like vaguely offensive to like be like a hermaphrodite, like as if somebody is a study.
It's offensive because people made it offensive, you know? It's
Maybe.
like the word like retard. Like at one point it was the technical term. No, it was the official term at one point, and then people, used it as a slur.
I get what you're saying, but I think like the word retard was like developed as a like by the medical community as a standard, whereas I think hermaphrodite was taken from like being in a purely like zoological, biological thing,
and
then
adapted
being like
to
and then was adapted to be offensive by just like offensive people.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I believe. That's what I think.
It's a complicated thing, and I also didn't want to make any assumptions that this movie actually knew how to handle the character. And like, I just figured they said hermaphrodite because it's like, oh, it's it's a dude that dresses up as a woman. He may have one parts or the other.
Well, it's also just really, like 80s. Yeah. Oh man, we need comedy. What are we gonna do? We have to cross dress. Like,
get
honestly,
Gene Simmons.
They play it for comedy a little bit, but honestly, I do feel like a big part of it is they want to play up on the fact that like this man is also a woman, and he's like, there's some parts where like they have a lot of makeup on Gene Simmons, like it's pretty. The cross dressing makeup is really good, and there's some points where. Like Gene Simmons is like, hey, like we should do something about this, and like John Stamos has to play it out, and you can see the acting fear in John Stamos's eyes as like this person is proposing to him, propositioning him. So like I also feel like they're playing it up not just for the comedic aspect, which is
but for the gay
but also
panic,
the fear, for the gay panic.
Gay panic.
Like John
Always
Stamos,
solid.
like, I'm not gay, and it's like whatever.
Classic.
But yeah, there's some offensive. It handles some weird stereotypes. His best friend, I'm blanking on his name.
Kwan?
Cliff. No, it's Cliff, who plays
Peter
the
Kwan.
stereotypical super intelligent Asian classmate who kind of like flounders at everything else but being smart.
Yeah, he wears like they look like snow overalls a couple times, like like snow pants.
Snowveralls.
He also makes a gun that just evaporates people using was it like jet fuel and tennis balls or some shit.
You find that in your backyard, I'm sure. Mr. Peter Kwan. He's a genius. He said he was a genius, so there you go.
Genius.
Does he call his problems quandaries?
God damn, you're on fucking point tonight.
We just lost a bunch of listeners named like Quan. You just alienated an entire.
Actually, don't be weird about this, but yeah, his real name is Kwong.
Yeah, that's why I've been saying.
Peter
for some
Kwong.
reason I assumed that was the character name.
It could have been. I mean,
well, it was his name, so it adds up.
Some of these people don't have last names as official characters.
Okay,
I love it.
But yeah, Robert Englund's in it, George Lazenby, Gene Simmons, Vanity, John Anderson, and
John Anderson.
Looking at people that actually have, and Brascombe Richmond, who is, if you saw his face, you'd recognize him. He plays a lot of stereotypical Native American stuff. If you were to watch like Texas Walker Ranger and shit like that.
Walker Texas Ranger.
Oh yeah, oh, God.
The Texas Walker Ranger.
Texas Walker Ranger.
Oh, that's just like a really old Walker Texas Ranger where he has a walker and he's just like going after him.
I'm gonna get fucked up in a parking lot in Texas at some point.
Yes,
because
you
I
are.
said that.
Yeah, you're gonna get fucked up in a parking lot in Texas regardless. No.
I think that's a pretty good summary of these, of kind of what I'm trying to get at with Never Too Young to Die. I would really like to move on to the domains now, though, and kind of get my little feelers and what you guys are bringing to this little smorgasbord.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Jahnavi, you can.
You kicked it off last.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my thing that I've brought is an offering.
Yes, bring your offering to the table in front of me.
Feed it, Brian.
Is Sunshine, as I've said, by Robin McKinley. apologies to Keenan. It does have quite a few vampires in it.
Oh, of course. No.
Tale of the Vampire.
Yeah, so the protagonist is like, a chill baker
Nice.
who is descended like on her father's side from like a line of sorcerers.
Good.
The setting
You've got me already.
is
On her father's side, which is the side that matters.
Chill Baker Sorcerer.
Yes.
Got it.
And like all of her father's side of the family has like, vanished. There were the Voodoo Wars, which like basically just like kind of like a World War situation. It's low-key post-apocalyptic. There are whole like zones of like of places that are like uninhabitable because they've been too contaminated by like black magic and stuff.
Quick question.
The primary conflict was between humans and vampires, but they're also just anti-others, meaning like demons and werewolves, but mostly vampires because vampires are the most scary.
Anything that's not a baker. So like a cobbler would get strung up in the street.
Yeah. So wait. So everyone, like this isn't like behind the scene, like typical fantasy stuff. They're out in the open.
Oh well, yeah. Like everybody, like
know
humans are
about...
very clearly aware of the existence of others. Yes.
All right.
And then
cool.
like plenty of humans have other blood that they have to hide, and they're treated sort of like as second-class citizens if it's found out like officially, and they have to register and all of that. And anyway, so that's
cool.
a little bit of black background about the world, and like the main character Sunshine, whose name is Ray, but everyone calls her Sunshine. She
I love it.
She is kidnapped. She like goes to one of these she goes to like the side of one of these lakes, which is, apparently a bad zone, and she gets kidnapped by a bunch of vampires, and she's not expecting to survive the situation. She has like been kidnapped into the midst of like a vampire war or like a gang war between vampire gangs.
Shit that gets to the start.
Yeah, and so she teams up with this like other vampire that's being imprisoned by those vampires, and somehow they manage to escape this like crazy situation, and then they have to essentially become allies to defeat this other more dangerous vampire gang.
Gross, but alright.
Yeah, so like this is a very rough summary. There's a lot of other things going on in the world, including like Sunshine cannot really share her alliance with a vampire with anybody because it's super sketchy, and their species are at war. And
and by the way, there's some sort of
natch.
And in addition to that, there's like a special forces branch of like the police, which are specifically supposed to deal with like other related crimes.
Bakers.
Hell yeah.
So they're also kind of like on her, and then in the meanwhile, there's like bake shop, coffee shop drama. You feel like
you burnt the scones again, Ray. How are we supposed to live in this post-apocalyptic life without proper skin?
It's actually extremely well written. It's a very intriguing world, which is why everybody or like people who read it were like, "Oh yeah, so where's the sequel to Sunshine?" Like, okay, like there are still all these unresolved plots. Like, what's happening with these special forces people? Like, what's going on with?
They're doing their job.
What's up with Big Squad?
Yeah, like
what's going on?
It doesn't seem like it's resolved in a lot of ways, and you aren't even entirely sure if there's necessarily been enough extant character growth for it to like truly end as an arc in particular ways. But like, according to the authors, like, no, that's the story I wanted to tell. Like, I don't really want to revisit that. I'm good. But everyone else who read Sunshine was very much like, hey, so like, can we have a sequel in which we know like what were the repercussions with this like extra special forces? Like, hey, can we get more backstory on this like baker chick's boyfriend who is clearly been involved in some mysterious way because he has all these runes on him and just stuff like that.
Just so many things. So was it considered? Is it more of like a pulp hit, or was it like a widespread like bestseller hit?
I mean, it's. I think Sunshine is one of Robin McKinley. Robin McKinley is a pretty well-known fantasy author. She's like. She's been pretty prolific, and she's produced a lot of things that have been well received. I believe she's had like several bestsellers, but Sunshine is one of her most popular books.
Okay, so yeah, it is strange that she wouldn't try to continue it.
Right, but she's just the kind of person who's just like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm an author, fuck you. Like, I've already done my success, I'm doing this because I want to do it. And she didn't feel like there was more to that story, even though there were all of these elements where everyone else thought like, well, from what I've heard from other things,
so many things open.
Seems like there should be more. But Robin was just like, no, like I wanted this character to have like this set of experiences, and yeah, that's where I want to leave it. And I have read
I get that.
short stories and stuff that sort of like end right at this very like cliffhangery point
instead of like falling off. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if she was just like, oh man, I gave myself too much world here. I don't really like the sequel thing.
Is this recent? Did she say it?
Let me look it up.
That's definitely, as somebody that writes a lot of D&D stuff, that hits me. Like, you start working on a world,
oh
and
my
you put
God,
all these
right?
like open-ended things, and then by like the third time you're playing with people, it's like, I fucking hate this world. I'm gonna go do something else.
I'm writing like a little. I was gonna be a little vignette, but I'm adding more stuff to it. I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to address that at some point. I'm reading on the Sunshine Wikipedia that apparently in 2008 she said that she'll start a sequel that's in the same universe but not a direct sequel after her working on her novel Pegasus.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that now, but I'm
sure she's if she hasn't released it in 10 years.
Yeah,
like it.
So both not giving and giving them what they want at the same time.
I love it.
It's not really a passion project for hers. After I'm sure hearing the demand for it, she was just like, okay, maybe I can do something with the same world, because world building is a very big part of fantasy. She's just like, well, I've already done all this work. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. And I do know that other
full of runes that I could just go off of.
And then other books of hers have been roughly set in the same universe, but at different times. Like
cool.
one of her other quite famous books is called The Blue Sword, and then there is like legends about the Lady Erin who like fought dragons and stuff. And sometimes at other points that's mentioned in other books of hers, even though the stories don't really directly overlap in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So,
cool.
I mean, it's something, the kind of thing she's familiar with, but I believe, because I read on her blog post, like she wrote a blog post about like, one of the questions I get all the time is like, when is there going to be a sequel to Sunshine? And she was just like, yeah, and she said like, I'm happy with the way the story is. I don't really want to do that.
My response, fuck off. Read something else, nerds.
Fuck you, fans. What do I care about you?
And she... So, I mean, I thought that this was a fascinating thing to, like, bring to this discussion just because it's unusual, because it was basically, like, one person's call to be like, no, like, this is a completed story, even though a bunch of other people were, like, clamoring for
it's the
additional
opposite
stuff.
Of this.
Yeah.
This was made by probably like written by a singular artist and then brought out, and the people said no.
Mm-hmm.
But yours is the people said yes, we want more, and the artist is like, nah, man, nah, I ain't hot. I'm not hot.
Yeah, and
like it's
even,
yo, Sunshine, that piece of trash. You want more of it?
But I would wager that a lot of the things like that indicate or that tell us, oh, this should be a sequel, will still be similar. Like, hey, you have characters you can do more with. You have a setup. You have, like, this kind of plot. You still have some inherent tension in, like, these sorts of things.
Yeah.
You have a special forces unit that's devoted to the capture and, like, death dealing of specifically bakers. I mean, you can't just not write more about that.
Yeah, and then there's like a surprising amount of the book spent just like describing good dessert, and I'm into it. You know, like
I like that.
I love that.
I'm into it. It's like I would recommend that regardless of whether or not, you know, you enjoy reading fantasy, like I thought that the book I thought the book was good. Like regardless of whether she finishes the sequel that she's kind of been harangued into, I guess.
George R.R. Martin.
Yeah. Like that I don't care. I think the book is a good book on its own. I would certainly read a sequel if I get one. What
if she wrote a really passive aggressive sequel? Like, it's just
like, I guess she bakes some more fucking scones.
Oh no, it's like it's like the first chapter, everyone like is dead or something, and the world
at one point the baker like stabs a vampire with a butter knife. It's great. Like,
nice. That's kind of the action I can get behind.
Knife. Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds super interesting. Like, I'm kind of interested in that
it's
story.
It's very unique. I like it a lot.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
nice. I like to compare and contrast. All right, Keenan, let's get all up in what you're
in the dark universe. Thank you, Ryan. I'm so glad you asked. The dark universe,
mummies and stuff,
was originally
Tom Cruise.
Less dark, but then it expanded.
At first there was nothing. Basically, it was Universal Pictures, like you said earlier, being like, you know what, we could have a set of universe too.
Franchises are so hot right now,
so we're gonna make one. What do we have? So we have a bunch of things that don't really add up. It's like, let's put them together. So they basically said they made Dracula Untold with Luke Evans in 2014, and that was
did not watch it.
You shouldn't. I'll be honest.
I think the majority of people would agree with me that they did not watch.
It's a box office success, but received mixed reviews. I thought I was actually really disappointed by it, to be honest, because I remember first seeing the trailer for it because I was super hyped because like it was coming out. And it was like, time to tell the real story of Vlad, Tepes, Dracula. I was like, oh, hell yeah, because I think Vlad the Impaler as like an actual like historical figure, extremely interesting, cool dude to like learn about. But then it turned out to just be another vampire thing. But then they reworked it that it would go on to be part of this shared universe of rebooted horror films, drawing from the Universal Pictures original.
Like classic
stuff.
Like
a lineup. Like, so the first 3 movies they said afterwards, they said, all right, well, here we're going to do. We're going to do The Mummy, we're going to do The Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. And at first, this gathered a lot of support, like a lot of, stuff, because they had already planned on rebooting the Mummy franchise, and they attached a lot of people, actually, to this future.
Yeah, like high caliber people.
They got
Tom Cruise,
but not just the Mummy. They also got they got in the Mummy. They had Russell Crowe play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I thought was an interesting choice. But it honestly probably the most enjoyable part of that entire movie. Kind of dumb at the same time, but whatever.
Well, he kind of is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Exactly.
If he has even an ounce of booze, he turns into a Mr. Hyde and just destroys everything near him.
Classic Russell Crowe. I love that dude. And they got Javier Bardem to play the Frankenstein monster at some point, and they also
so that's a pretty good get.
They had Johnny Depp attached to the Invisible Man project as the tutelar Invisible Man. They also said that, hey, eventually we want to do the Wolfman again, because they did that recently with Benicio del Toro. But they said we want to do that again. We want to do the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. They even got Andy Elfman to make this official theme music. But eventually the Mummy came out, and that kind of that killed that. They got such negative reviews, apparently, that they reworked it. They put it all on hold, and then now it's vaguely like no one who originally was attached is attached again. But I last reported that Elizabeth Moss is in talks to co-star in The Invisible Man, but we have no idea when they'll be made, or if they'll be made. But it's suffice to say that the Dark Universe is dead.
Ooky spooky dead.
Exactly.
Will it rise like
with
a bolt of lightning.
Exactly. So I thought I'd bring it here because this is
very
good
spooky voice. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's because I'm quite a spooky person.
You are basically it. So you're basically a ghost.
I mean, you guys can't see me, so I might be a ghost.
Yeah, for all I know, you're Vincent Price.
You're a spooky Skypey.
Yeah.
I'm a Skype ghost.
You're a Skype ghost.
But yeah, I'm bringing up.
It's my everlasting torment to record podcast episodes without
having
a camera active.
That's a very interesting curse. But I'm bringing it up because, like I said, this was a franchise that that they were hoping to make a cinematic universe, and in theory, they had, like I said, they were setting everything up to have God knows how many movies.
Yeah, I remember the hype when they were starting up.
It was kind of exciting
when they were showing the first few promos for the Mummy. Everybody's really excited. I saw a lot of the stuff about, new actress X was attached to be in, like, Bride of Frankenstein, and they were talking about who's going to be doing, like, Creature from the Blue Lagoon and all this other, like, they're going to bring up all the classic B-movie horror stuff, which I was kind of pumped for.
I was super excited because the best thing about, like, the classic horror movies format is that they're very much like the kind of like the cool adventure movies that I like.
Yeah.
And I was excited for it, especially because like modern technology, I think modern studios could
improve upon it a lot.
Yeah, they make really good looking movies. I'm not saying modern studios always make good movies, but in my opinion, a lot of movies nowadays at like the highest level look good at least. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing.
So I
mean, when you watch some of the old movies, it's like obviously dude in a very stiff suit who can't quite move the way he should.
It doesn't always. Don't get me wrong. I think practical effects are the way to go when you want something to hold up. But I think we need to do a lot of cool stuff with the technology now, and I would have loved to see that. Like, I would have loved to see Frankenstein be resurrected using modern, cinematic technology.
Yeah, and I know that when I like read Frankenstein the book, I always wished that it was a bit longer and we got a bit more of like the creature's point of view.
Well, there is that one. There is like I Frankenstein, which is all about Frankenstein's point of view, where he's all cute and stuff because he's the dude from
it's Aaron Eckhart.
Dark Knight. Yeah, Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah, it's a cutie. It is such a weird paced movie. It is
extremely weird.
It is so
and there's
weird.
Like angels and stuff. It makes no
sense.
I don't know.
But whatever. But yeah. So like, I was very.
He has a constructed body, but what about his soul?
Yeah, basically.
Did you just read a tagline? Because that's perfect.
Perfect. I love it. But yeah.
Did you just come up with that?
Yes.
You've got a future in Hollywood.
Yeah, you gotta make it big, kids. But yeah, unfortunately, people just didn't like The Mummy at all. I think in part because, like, one, Brendan Fraser was.
They
I'm sorry.
He should have been the zombie.
Also,
actually, no. I like the fact that the zombie was a girl.
Well, I thought it was cool, but my problem with The Mummy was that everything was very convenient. Like,
they conveniently fall into the pit. That conveniently has the thing they need to find.
Yeah, like the magic knife that like she was looking for. Like they just happened to crash there near this random fucking like church, and then like she like knocked something over, and it was there. And the thing is, like, both characters were surprised at that. It's not like she was like, aha, you led me right to it, or it was like, I was using my mummy magic to find it. It was like, oh wow,
mummy magic.
Wow, this is nice.
Magic of my mummy.
The one thing I needed. It's right here. Great, perfect. I was like, what? No, you can't just find it. Anyway.
There has to be some kind of,
Yeah, I personally was super hyped for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but because people so didn't like it, they scrapped almost all these plans, and now it's not even, all
the plans are shredded, and there's not even people attached
anymore. Yeah,
there's,
like I said, like, as far as we know, maybe Elizabeth Moss, there's no 2BA, and remember, this was in 2017 when The Mummy came out. That's 2 years now, and there hasn't been any real word besides the point that like some of them are kind of being worked. Like The Invisible Man, as far as we know, is being maybe worked, and that there's going to be individual, like they're going to reboot the movies, but they're not going to make it a universe kind of thing.
DC can force its franchises into existence. Universal Studios can force theirs.
I'm not going to get into how I think DC is wrong, but their idea is a good idea, okay? But actually, DC they're doing what DC's doing now, which said, let's get rid of the idea of a shared universe. Yeah, which I think is, the good idea, and I think, like, honestly, Marvel does that already, because I argue that Marvel as a cinematic universe has a bunch of flaws, but as individual movies are very good.
They all work out, yeah. Every movie, like, you don't have to watch, like, I watched Ant-Man 2, like, 2 weeks ago, and I maybe watched half of Ant-Man 1, and it felt like a completely self-contained movie. I didn't feel left out even for, like, half a second, except for the weird stuff.
I have a bunch of opinions about that, but we won't. We won't get into that. But yeah, that's the Dark Universe.
As far as the cinematic universe goes, though, I wish that they were a little bit more creative with the cinematography. And I also wish that they would explore some different color palettes. But
you don't like red?
No, a red and
you don't like red
overtone with a silver back tone.
You don't like red?
All you need for cinematics.
Well, that was basically the Dark Universe. They weren't very good movies. They had a bunch of good ideas, and they could have rebooted them and made them good, but like now we don't even know if we're gonna get.
So would you say that they had like story and idea, but they just didn't have like the execution needed?
Yes, I definitely when it comes to the Dark Universe, because frankly, like the original movies are good. I still rewatch, Frankenstein and the Wolfman.
Classics are classics for a reason.
I mainly watch the classic Wolfman movie to make fun of Lon Chaney and Claude Rains. No, I'm sorry, real quick sidebar. Okay, he goes to this town, right? His birthplace from America. His fucking everything is wolf paraphernalia everywhere. Like the house is decorated in wolves. His father's cane has a wolf on it. He goes to a thing.
That's how things work.
He gets a wolf, and then then he is telling people, "I think I'm a wolf man," and his dad's like, "Where are you getting all these ideas of wolves from?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This whole town." He's in there for 10 seconds, and 4 people have told him that fucking wolfbane rhyme about, when the mood is high and a man, can become a wolf. I'm like, you don't even know this bitch. Why are you telling him this? It's no wonder he's fucking breaking down.
It's
my secret hope. Oh, sorry, Jahnavi, you can go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say your secret hope was that you too were a wolf, but I'm sure you were going to say something else.
Is that I'm a werewolf and that these nightmares aren't real.
My secret hope is that now that the people know it's not going to be like a Marvel franchise, it's not going to be this big cinematic universe. One, that I think what you said before, they're going to focus on singular movies, but 2, they're going to mess with them a little bit, not make them super big action movies, but make them more noir and dark the way the originals were. I mean, there's still action and there's some adventure in there, but overarching story plot, it's like a horror movie. And I hope that they bring that back, because current tones of horror movie is gore horror and just outrageous, scare you out of your skin horror.
Yeah, jump scares and gore.
But a old school noir, slow boil, kind of a little bit cartoony at times, because that's the comedic relief. Mm-hmm. I would dig on that. I watch. Yeah,
I think the perfect remake is The Mummy from 1999, Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
It worked really good. There was some scary moments in there. It
was action, it was adventure, it was everything I kind of wanted,
Yeah, it was a perfect remake.
Yeah.
And Brendan Fraser is the perfect man.
Exactly. I think I summed up the domain pretty well.
All right. Well, I think unless you guys want to get any last little bites in, I think that maybe covers it for our domain.
Okay, I just want to say real quick, fuck vampires. They all should have been killed. I'm sorry. Boom, there. That's all I gotta say. Boom. I'm just saying what the people want to hear.
Just giving the people what they want. Yeah. That extra spicy
You
take.
gotta stay on brand.
Yeah.
All right. That it says the host believe they don't have a little script anymore for what I'm supposed to say to lead us into discussion. How am I ever going to get us to discuss
We
this
could just
movie?
continue with Virginia Wolfman. And
Virginia Wolfman. All right, I think we went over our topics pretty well. I think we've got a good synergy here. We got something that is a monstrosity that couldn't get off the ground. We then have a beautiful book that is off the ground, but the author is punting it back into the ground.
And we have a series about monstrosities.
She got other things to write.
And then we have a series about monstrosities that couldn't get off the
ground.
So
really, we all have monsters.
Yeah, let's tear into this discussion, and I'm going to start with what I think is a fun question. A dealer's choice. What did you find? Each of you, Jahnavi, you can answer first. I'll call you out first. What was either the most offensive moment of this movie to you, or the most awesome moment of this movie to you? You can choose either one or both if you like.
It's difficult to pick out one offensive moment, because the movie seems to espouse an offensive attitude, which sort of
that's quite true.
Supersedes any one moment for me. But I think one thing that really got me, that stuck out in my mind, was that nipple bite at the end. Near the end.
The nipple bite is terrifying.
The nipple bite is a little scary. It's sexual. It's weaponized. They're biting each other. It's I don't know. That stuck out in my mind. I winced at that, and then that just like that nipple shot frame was that was out there.
There's nothing that will ever get that out of your mind.
Yeah, like I need
You're welcome.
I need a metaphorical steel wool or something to just like try and scrub that out.
A sonic Mr. Train.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's there's a little monologue back at that point where it's like John Stamos and Gene Simmons. Like Gene Simmons is like, I am the future. I am both man and female. There's no way you can compete. And then John Stamos is like, well,
I am a whole man.
Which means I'm a full man, which means I'll always be better than you. And then proceeds to, well, he does get his like ass kicked and he's about to get, well, the thing that you need to know if you don't know about this movie, listener, and if you don't know about this movie, I'm speaking to you, singular listener, I'm whispering in your sweet little ear. If you've not seen this movie, you should watch it because Gene Simmons has like a coke nail made of steel that he uses to kill people by pricking them in the neck with it, and it's the most like dumb but also very funny thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Also,
like, oh no, not the nail.
When he like
pricks them.
Runs down the dam or whatever. Just being like, oh, I win. Like,
yeah.
There's so many characteristics of like, you don't know whether he's trying to be more childish or trying to like, if this is
crazy or
yeah, like you.
Should I be offended by this or is this good acting? No.
Like, what are we doing here?
or you don't know. Like, I was just like, this has to be a parody of people's understanding of sexuality. I'm like, no, this was not a parody. This was like, we are going to vilify like
vilify and weaponize.
We're gonna vilify
transsexuality.
Well, yeah, like we're gonna basically vilify and weaponize and like lump together any sexual deviancy.
He's everything.
Yeah,
he's a special. He's got everything packed into these buns.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of pressure on this character. Let me tell you, to like represent everything that.
And they did not pick the best actor to do it. Gene Simmons, while maybe some people could argue is a good singer and bassist, probably not a solid actor, as we can tell from this movie.
Well, I mean,
it was an attempt. It was an attempt at something.
It was an attempt. He tried real hard.
Also, like right at that very end, that like being like, I just wanted to tell you that you're beautiful. And he like tries to kiss him tongue first.
Well, that was
like you stick your tongue out
movie, don't you
from
know?
like a foot away.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
it's great.
This is such organic sexual chemistry. I don't.
And then he got killed by his own coke nail.
Yeah,
as often happens.
All right, Keenan, what is your favorite cool movement or moment, or your favorite problematic moment? Or both?
I think it's my favorite problematic moment. I think was her. It's like a 5-minute long sequence of her trying to seduce him.
It's so good. He like eats.
No,
an
it's
apple
terrible because like it's 5 minutes of like
and a Perrier.
Oh, I just didn't it was just so like grossly sexualized, but also not like.
It was the forbidden fruit.
Because like she's like at first she's just like, hey,
they are being actively observed by other government people. Like there are people with binoculars watching them.
Yeah, but that's not even like let's ignore that. Let's just like I will walk you all through, listeners. They're representative
of John Milton.
Who's
writing Paradise Lost.
Yeah, let me just walk you through this because there's so many steps to this fucking seduction. First, she stands by him and he's all like, oh, I'm nervous, or something. I don't know, he's ignoring her. And then she's like, I'm gonna like take off my top and then take off my bottom. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it's about to pop off. Nope, not yet. He just kind of stands there, and then she's like, okay, fine, I'll go over to I'll fucking lay down on the bench or the little recliner. And she goes to lay down. Yeah. And then he walks by her and gets like a Pierre soda water. And then she's like oiling herself. And then he's like, oh, I dropped it. I guess I'll get an apple. She goes to get an apple.
Yeah.
And then she like takes off her top.
Like, the 80s cult classic Heathers.
It's a very unsexy.
Yeah, like one of the points of Heathers was just like they wanted to stage these like jocks murders as like a gay suicide pact, and they're just like, oh, you know what'll work if we put some Perrier in their like picnic basket. Like there's an association apparently in the 80s of like Perrier being
by dropping
gay.
it, he wasn't gay. Oh, I see. Okay. But
so this is your most offensive moment. Why would you rate it
once
as
again,
offensive? Did it offend you personally?
We're not fucking finished yet. That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
Because then he goes back and gets an apple. She takes off her top, and then she just lays
gets
there.
Another apple.
That's the thing. He like drops his apple fucking again, and then goes to get another apple, and then like she's washing herself with a garden hose. That's somehow on this second level of the home. But anyway. And then he just kind of like forces, like he just kind of like does this run and kiss thing, and then we have this long gratuitous sex scene. But the reason why it's just
the
like
really weird sex scene is my favorite part.
But you see her be thrown down like 5 times in different shots.
5 times.
Because cinematically, it's so fucking gratuitous. I hate it. But 2, also because like it's just so overtly like sexualized. Like I felt like at first like we were maybe gonna get a character out of this because every once in a while a female in the 80s got like a character with personality and stuff. But this kind of like sealed the deal that this is kind of all just her as like a sexual object.
This is a purpose in the movie, as to be a sexual object.
Yeah, and so like I don't know. It was just like because it was just so hammered in. That's what really offended me. Like yeah, if one as a viewer, I get it. They're gonna bone. I'm not
they're
fucking
fuck,
stupid.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm also like, Jesus, like, do we really have to like nail this into the coffin? Like, I don't know. I think
now, if you want to look at it from a deeper perspective, I'm not saying that yours wasn't deep, but what if he was so reticent because he knew or at least suspected that she had been fucking his dad, and he did not want to
that's why she had to wash herself with the garden hose first. She was
symbolic
cleansing herself.
So you're saying that was a metaphorical cleansing?
I don't know.
The boning of his father.
Yeah, I think
that's a very deep take. I like it.
I think that the apples is probably significant also.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. It's like
the metaphorical
the forbidden fruit.
2 apples. So 1 apple, you get the knowledge that kicks you out of Eden. The second apple is
you get fucked.
Yeah,
you get fucked.
Yeah, that's actually the other part of the Bible.
The same woman
that you never read is once Adam and Eve get kicked out of heaven, the serpent comes back and says, "All right, cool, now he's gone. You want the apple? Get fucked." It's that apple, that sweet, nice. Come on, pluck it.
Paradise Lost XXX.
It's actually just a banana, so like they don't know how to eat it.
What does the Perrier symbolize?
Once again, he's not
I just
gay.
brought that up because like it was weird to me, like watching this 80s classic, like other movie, like other cult phenomenon movie that Perrier indicates gayness. Like I didn't know that.
So yeah, maybe not just this movie's about fluoride consumption, but it could also be about
he's hesitant because he's repressing his own am I gay or am I not?
I just think like the reason why because when I was watching it, I thought about like modern like sex scenes. Is it okay if we touch stuff?
Oh yeah, we can touch this sex scene topic.
But the modern sex scenes are just, in my opinion, like recently the movies I watched are a lot more like, I don't want to say like tender or anything, but they're a lot more like awkward and like a little bit more realistic. Like they don't put on all like sexy music anymore. We don't like have fucking 20 million.
They try
shots.
to humanize both people involved.
Yeah, exactly. We do like both sides, and like because I just watched I watched Outlaw King with Chris Pine, and like he's about to like make love to like his wife for the time, and like they're both like developed characters, and this is a symbol like. This is like a progression of like both of them as characters because they weren't supposed to marry each other and like they're really awkward up till then, and like it was just a very cool. Like, oh look, I'm glad this couple's finally coming together. But I feel like this is indicative like that 80s like idea in movies where it's like, all right, there's a girl, and then you did something, you said hi to her, now you have sex, and that's how relationship works. Am I right, fellas? And
it's Bone City.
Yeah,
time.
like it was just just so fucking stupid. Like looking back and like how people thought. That's how you write a movie and like slap the fucking script down and high-fived each other,
Well, yeah, it's because like it's one of the reasons why if you like look into how did American movies depict sexuality like through the ages, it's actually pretty fascinating because there's clear discomfort and then there's like clear, but this is also the end goal. And it seems like over time, like getting a little bit more naturally from A to B has become progressively more okay to talk about. So that's kind of interesting, just to be able to compare.
Yeah, no, it's very. I agree with you. It's a very interesting like trend, and I'm really liking the newer trend on it. But like I said, I think it represents like such like this the sex scene in Never Too Young to Die Young, and the son of George
Never
Lazenby.
Too Young to Die Young.
Never Too Young to Die
Never
Young.
Too Young to Die.
Which I always want to put young at the end for some reason.
Too old to die young now.
Never too young to die as a young man today, forever.
And they definitely picked that title for the inevitable sequel, Never Too Young to Live. And that was going to be the sequel. They were going to be like fucking up shit in like Europe. It was definitely going to start out with like him skiing down a mountainside.
Are you sure the sequel wasn't going to be JK, Too Young to Die?
Yeah. But yeah, so the male gaze basically was my complaint about, like, I thought it was just the most annoying part of this movie. Just because, like I said, they just beat you over the head with it. There's no subtlety. There's no interesting fact about it. It's just like, oh wow, I almost saw a nipple one time. I guess that's kind of interesting.
There's a definite
he went
lack
from
of
seeing them to biting them.
Tact.
And like, I don't know, like you could have done any one step of that 4-step process I just outlined for that scene. Like you could have just had her take off her clothes to reveal a swimsuit and then cut to like their weird boning scene. Or you could have just had her taking off her swimsuit and oiling herself, and you didn't have to spend, like I said, 5 minutes on it. But I don't know.
Man, they had Vanity. They had her for the day, for shoots. Like
You're right, for that one day. That explains everything about her acting in that movie now. You're right. They had her for a day.
There's a lull in her singing schedule, and they just didn't want to waste a minute.
You're right. Everything was one shot. It was one day.
We can't get too much into our kinks. What do we got? We got apples and we got water. We got to run for it.
Let's do. We got soda water. We got some apples. We got hoses. We got rubber hoses.
That's subversive.
Some fucking Perrier up in this piece.
Yeah, I love it.
So yeah, I think those are pretty good answers. My favorite moment. It's a hard one. I definitely like the beginning because the beginning when Ragnar just like fucking ends some random chick with his finger just because it's like out of fucking nowhere and just lays the scene for this outrageous character.
Yeah, he is.
That is also extremely offensive. So I think it's like the best of both worlds. I'm just like both cool and fucking weird and offensive. So I think it's pretty obvious why Never Too Young to Die is where it is. It just had too many things going against it. It seems low budget. The story is not super great. I mean, it has big stars, but for whatever reason, people kind of read between the lines and know that it wasn't a good movie. And I think it's deserving of its fate to some extent. Especially in like today's pretense of, what we know now and about respecting other people and, stereotypes and all that stuff. It definitely wouldn't fly today. Do you think that your guys' movies deserve book and movie? Do you think the book deserves its kind of fate as a singular one-off for Jahnavi, and do you think that the cinematic universe, the dark universe, kind of deserves its fate as maybe a one-hit wonder, depending on how things pan out? Do you think they're deserved?
Yeah, well, I'll tackle this first. Is that all right? Or
yeah, cool. Go for it.
I think the universal themes in Universal Pictures. Of the classics, no? Alright, fine. It's not you guys. Like puns.
Well, first of all, Universal Studios is clearly, like, planetist because they're only showing the fucking planet Earth when they call themselves Universal.
Where's the Martian representation in movies? Am I right? Like, they have a Martian movie and they cast Matt Damon in it? What the fuck? No.
Seriously, my gosh!
But
I love that movie. So
I think overall the movies, like the original movies, do have a lot of really interesting takes on them. You can really delve deep into a lot of like Burns' work and H.G. Wells for like the classic monster movies and books, and as well as like the vampire from and Bram Stoker's Dracula. You can delve a lot into it. They have a lot of like universal themes about like the fear. Well, one, I mean, Bram Stoker's Dracula was basically beware foreigners, because they're so spooky and they'll take your like.
Because they're weird.
They'll be over sexualized. Foreigners. They'll have sex with your fiancés and stuff.
It's interesting that you brought up like the dark universe in general, just because like themes of sex and sexuality and monstrosity go together.
They go hand in hand. But I think like you can use them nowadays. They have like universal templates which are very well liked. I mean, we've done Frankenstein how many times? We've really done vampires how many times? And the romantic idea of the vampire originated in well, I mean, it was originally what was his name? Lord Byron's piece The Vampire, which he actually wrote the same weekend that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, which Jahnavi is probably why you don't get that much of the of Adam's Adam the monsters viewpoint, because she wrote it in the weekend.
Because this was a weekend spoopy
because it was rainy
project.
outside. Let's just redefine literature for the next 100 years or something.
Yes.
But yeah,
what we need in the future? Goths.
I think very easily these deserve a comeback. There's a lot of nostalgia going on. These ideas could work, and I think with today's storytelling,
I think what works in its favor is that these monster templates are now just embedded into the canon of media and literature.
Yeah, exactly.
So if things that are usually successful going forward, they take something that people are familiar with and recontextualize it for another era.
Could, with today's artists, I would love to have someone like Rebecca Sugar or someone write a monster movie. Or Guillermo del Toro does monsters wonderfully and does them very heartfelt, sometimes very touching scenes.
Right.
But I think the issue was that they tried to lean into the gritty reality reboot, which which is
unfortunate.
Yeah, which didn't super play off. Dracula Untold had a bunch of unfortunately, I had to blame the writer because I don't think the ideas weren't the templates are there. I think it's the writers and the studios and the directors who didn't deliver on that.
I think there's a mistaken kind of premise that the gritty realism makes it feel more real to the person watching. When it can work that way, but I also think it can have the opposite effect. So having Superman in a gritty realistic movie doesn't work because
you need to.
If you have Superman in a super gritty realistic movie where everything makes sense and there's people in buildings, he's not a hero. He's a man that lets thousands of people die.
Yeah, no. What I think
it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, what you need to do with gritty reboots is you need to have them
on the beach.
Well, one,
Sand.
the beach, and two, you need to have
Gritty.
them.
Understand me.
It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
I think if you're going to do a gritty reboot, you have to. If you want to do gritty realism, you have to have it say something. For example,
we're here and we're gritty.
Yeah. Just for the shock factor of it all. Take for example, we mentioned George R. R. Martin earlier. That's actually in a way a sort of gritty reboot of how history is because history he calls it a Song of Fire and Ice. Some people think, and I don't know if he's actually said this, but I've read some other stuff about the idea that he calls it the Song of Fire and Ice because history is very romanticized. We talk about all these great heroes, but then you delve a little bit deeper and you find out about them and you're like, oh, well.
And there was some fucked up shit.
Yeah, Richard the Lionheart. I wrote a whole essay once about Richard the Lionheart, a real deep dive. I loved the dude. He was such a pisser, but he was also this insane piece of shit. He was hilarious because what he would do is he did shit he got sick during a siege during the Crusade, the Third Crusade, and he heard the French were offering 3 coins to anyone who could take a piece of the wall off and bring it to them. And so he was like, fuck that, I'm going to give you 4 coins for it. And then he had them take him out on a stretcher while he was sick out to the front so he could use a crossbow and pick off Saracens off the walls. Just because he was that dude, But on the other hand, he also died because he bankrupted the entire kingdom and, eventually, got killed because he was fighting for treasure in it that may not have existed in a castle that was a very tiny castle. Because he didn't want to wear his armor because he thought it didn't look cool. So, this guy was also an idiot. So when I think gritty realism, and you need to say something about it. Take also The Watchmen. It's a kind of a gritty take on the superhero genre, but they use that to say
it's
stuff
you're
about
using the grittiness to uncover something that lies below the surface, right?
Yeah, you're using the contextualized of monsters or medieval fantasy or superheroes to play at a larger issue. The Cold War was the real statement about The Watchmen, not, oh, look at Dr. Manhattan. He can wave people and it's really gross when that happens.
Right,
or
so then
Rorschach's
if you don't have,
edgy.
Substance behind your gritty reboot, then it just
You're
ends
just
up being
nerd.
an aesthetic more so than it ends up being, a substantial statement.
Yeah, you become an edgelord, You're not the Dark Knight,
edgelord thing. And it can really bring you out of it. I think if it's just too gritty and there isn't some play there, it takes you out of the movie. Like, I think maybe a good example, Guardians of the Galaxy is a ridiculous movie, but I'm in it the first time I watched it, I thought it was a great movie and I'm in it. Like, Into the Spider-Verse is a super ridiculous, fun movie, but when you are watching it, you are completely enveloped in that story. So much. And it's not gritty even a little bit, but there's other gritty movies I've watched recently. You know, there's always a gritty reboot of something, and you watch that movie and you just can't put yourself into the movie because you just can't get past the grit.
Yeah,
Keenan, I feel like this relates to like one of the discussions we've had on the podcast before, where it's just like, if you're gonna put something into another aesthetic or into another medium, there has to be intent and a purpose behind doing that.
Yeah.
Where like all of your choices need to, in the end, contribute to like what kind of message or like what kind of experience are you going for?
Yeah, it's like you said, there's got to be something behind it. There's got to be something deeper than just, I'm going to update this so it looks cool. Like, watch this guy punch this guy's face off or something. And it's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. That's like you can't spend your whole movie on atmosphere.
Yeah, like, which, don't get me wrong, like, just because something visually looks cool. Because I love like the realistic telling of superheroes. Every once in a while there's like a more realistic like the Year One, Batman Year One, right? Was a more realistic, like, how exactly did he get here? But it still told a story about how either Batman like did what he did, why he did what he did, and how Gordon became a guy who would support a vigilante from being like a good cop in a bad city. But that was an interesting story, but the thing is, you could have adapted that to anything. It didn't have to be a gritty Batman story. And I think when you come right down to it, like Jahnavi said, it's got to have substance. It's got to have a story that's a good story to tell, not just what if, Mickey Mouse like was drug addict.
And it's like that's what brainstorming is. Like, you can start with a what if,
Kingdom
but then
Hearts
you have to get somewhere from your what if.
Yeah, like
yeah,
feel free to do it, but just like acknowledge like this is just it.
Mm-hmm.
Not
and like the lines between what makes an aesthetic complement a story and what makes a story more interesting in particular aesthetics than others has a lot to do with like how you've sort of prepped your audience to like receive the story that you're telling. So like with a monster, or like when you're telling stories about monsters, people need to know if or have an indication like, okay, is this monster like gonna be straight played as a monster? In which case, okay, we're assuming that the monster comes with like symbolic connotations, like how vampires are symbolic of like
sexy force,
rude aristocrats who are like leeching off of the population, and associations like that. If you assume that if you're going to try and humanize the monster in some way, or be like or be like, oh, there are reasons, or like how you create a monster, the making of a monster, and like
who's
things
the real
like that.
monster here,
Yeah, and if you're discussing issues of that nature, then you get stories of a different type and format. So I think that a lot of how stories about monstrosity, and then I guess taking it back to Never Too Young to Die, like the monster in this story is like a hilarious mishmash of different stereotypes.
Yeah, Von Ragnar is basically like this sort of made-up monster.
Yeah, he is a Frankenstein of sexuality as the 80s understood sexuality.
He's not straight. He's not even a guy, maybe.
Yeah, and like it's, I don't know. I had to keep thinking of like Dr. Frankenfurter and the Rocky Horror Picture Show, though.
There is some definite, like as you mentioned, that there is some definite intermix there. Like maybe like a super big Chad watched Rocky Horror Picture Show, was like, you know what? There's like something to that being terrifying. We should really focus down on that.
Yeah, and like that's the whole thing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? It's like poking fun at like this
sexual fear, this
weird like puritanical like
vanilla
very
couple.
American attitude about other sexuality being like literally horror, and like putting it into that genre, and that's one of the reasons why that's so amusing. But then to put it into this like action movie context, is like, again, like you're mushing together these different ideas and aesthetics with like, again, like a very ambiguous but why, and then it turns out to be entertaining in a but why kind of way. But then to a modern audience, which we're like, okay, we've had like monster media up the wazoo, man. Like, we have so much monster media, and like the way that you've chosen to portray the monster of this story is just like it's purely cartoonish. There's nothing there's nothing in it, and that's one of the reasons why it's such like, at the end of the day, like, even as like offended as I might be at these various like portrayals of I don't even know what sexual statement you're making, but
gender non-conforming. Let's go with that.
Of just general like non-conforming,
Frankenfurter-esque type individuals, I guess you could say.
Right, or of just like, oh man, these this like Frankenstein of sexualities is gonna cause fluoridation. Like, what?
It's more like it comes off less nowadays. It's less. It's less like it's less of a fear as more of like humorous, the idea, you know,
right.
Like, and the bad guy's vaguely maybe gay. Whoa, I think the best. This kind of reminds me actually of the best like scene that I can remember that kind of did this, but also like did a fun twist on it that I really liked. Because like, you know, as we know, like queer coding is like a thing in literature and in, you know, movies, unfortunately. I don't always agree that, like, the queer coding is as queer as, like, some people say, where they're just like, this guy's vaguely smart, he must be gay. I mean, I don't know if that's, like, the gayest thing you can do. But anyway, kind of reminds me of Skyfall with Javier Bardem's De Silva character, when he has, you know, Daniel Craig tied up, and he's like, oh, so you know, is this your, you know, this must be your first time with a man touching your chest. And he was like, what do you think it's my first time for? And I thought, like, I think that was, like, the perfect response, like, that kind of, like, ooh, gays kind of, you know, point.
I've been to boarding school. We touched chests.
All the time. We touched more than just chests with fingers.
Or the classic, I go to bed with all my friends.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it's a great little, like, yeah, sure, like, you acknowledge that some people would be like, oh, this guy's like, you know, must be gay because he's a bad guy. But it's like, oh, wait, actually, it's more just a kind of like, he happens to be gay, maybe.
Right. And then I have to wonder whether this ends up being like, if it's supposed to, I think that when you assume a majority hetero audience, or like primarily hetero audience, then it's another, like, when you make the statement of like making your villain sexually ambiguous, it's a means of trying to other them in the way that like things are already othered.
It also I was going to say it plays into that also because it's kind of his defining characteristic. You know, he's not a villain. He's not like De Silva, who was this genius hacker killer dude, and then maybe was kind of bisexual. Right. He like hinted at maybe hitting on James Bond. Mm-hmm. No, this is his whole character. Like, there's very little outside Von Ragnar that's, you know...
besides irradiating the water supply.
Yeah, but, like, no, that's something he does. That's not his character, though. Like, his character's basically, like, he's vaguely...
Like, he doesn't have a character. That's the thing about these, like...
he's an evil, bisexual hermaphrodite as defined by Wicked.
Yeah, that's just,
But we're supposed to see that and go, oh, he must be evil.
Well, or it's because he's put in this evil role of just like, for everyone else, like, sexuality would not be like a character. That's not a characteristic that's like equivalent of like some kind of morality. Like, you wouldn't be like,
straight isn't used as like a defining characteristic. There's no like, watch out for that guy, he's so straight.
Right, but it is if it's not straight. Which is another thing of like monsters and othering, like kind of going together, and like sexual fears often playing into.
Well, that's why speaking of monster movies and like other, that's why I think Shape of Water was such a good example of outsider love playing on the trope of monster.
Mm-hmm.
Because she fucked the other instead of being scared of the other.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was also kind of an other one. You could like make a thing about. But anyway,
True.
But yeah, that's the thing.
And in my book, in Sunshine, they are just called the others.
It's your book now?
Yeah.
The others, like
Just
not
other.
humans, others.
But yeah.
But there's still that divide there between like all the things, even though everyone is focused on. Well, my question to you, real quick, is like the whole like the monster aspect, is that dealt with more a more 3-dimensional lens, or are there just a bunch of characters who like their defining characteristic is kind of a vampire?
They're kind of yes and no. Like the inherent tension in the story is like, okay, vampires and humans as a premise cannot coexist, and then you have the core
Agreed.
of the story where you do have like an
no.
alliance between a human and a vampire.
Okay.
So that does contribute to a lot of like the inherent stakes of the story. And
But
then
it's less
in
about
addition
them
to
being
that,
a vampire and more about
with the others special forces is that many
Is it really called that?
Yes. Like
No, it's the Baker's Special Forces. It's meant just for
just
Bakers.
the other.
yeah, we're here to get staked and we're here to get baked. Like,
Get steak and bake.
gotta steak and bake them. But like special operatives of the others special forces, they like a lot of them have like demon blood or like demon characteristics that's difficult to hide, and like they are in particular even more anti-vampire than like society in general is just anti-vampire because it's a threat to existence. They're just like, if we could only get rid of the vampires, maybe the rest of the others could have a better time. Cause
You're right, that werewolf will be fine. No.
yeah, or wear something.
Yeah.
Or like,
all right, guys.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of complexity when you try and be like,
Okay.
oh, okay, this parallels like actual social problems that we deal with in like
It's
a
not
normal
just,
a normal world, because you're just like hey, if I as like somebody who can't show my true self can help defeat this like even bigger, badder thing, like maybe that'll be okay. Like maybe then I can prove
I'll then
that.
count as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Be a real boy or girl.
Yeah. Yes.
a little bit more complex than Van Ragnar's internal conflict, I guess.
I guess that's true.
I mean, I'm still intrigued by this fluoridation thing. I'm still
the fluoridation.
I'm still on Virginia Wolfman.
I'm still confused about why he thought like that would happen, though, just because he destroys the water. Like, there's all of the rest of the United States, and if they think they're going to let California go, which is the fifth largest.
He's basically just going to take. He was going to take California's water supply like off the fucking.
Yeah, but
map,
I'm just saying,
man.
like the thing. I don't know. I didn't really fully
Well, you
understand.
gotta start somewhere. You gotta start with like a place. Maybe the selection
Only
of Southern California as like, oh, Southern California, it's like weird and hippie compared to the rest of the United States.
Yeah, it's not like he's doing this in like Waco,
right.
Texas, right?
He's the only one prepared for the apocalyptic waterless Southern California. He's got all the dirt bikes ready. He's got all of like the little. They're all wearing little chest plates made from like football uniforms.
It's Mad
They're
Max
all
with a
ready
few
for
more
it.
X's, you know?
Leather will be really in. Trust me.
All right, guys, we gotta. I hate to end the discussion here, but we are running a little long. I think you guys. I think that was a really great discussion. I think we talked out a lot of really good points. I think we dissected everyone's media pretty well.
Yep. Got down to the sexy bones.
We do not have any listener questions this week. If you want to have your own question or comment read on the show, we make posts on Facebook and Twitter where you can comment or reply, and we'll be sure to talk about it. So if you want to be heard, just let us know. You just got to put it out there. You can see those every other Friday when CGP is off the air. Likes, shares, and comments all enter you into a raffle, giving you a chance to pick your own topic for a future episode, which I think is going to be coming up soon.
It's a lottery for your ears.
Yeah. I think the official announcement... Well, actually, it was the official announcement. It may have been a couple episodes ago, but whatever. But that means, with the end of discussion, we must move on. We must move on to the ever-dreaded ratings section.
Oh, boy.
And first, I just want to thank you guys. I think that was a super interesting discussion that we had. I think we really dissected everybody's media, good and bad, what was going on with it. And I gotta come up with a scale of 1 to 5 somethings. 1 to 5.
1 to 5. No, it should
1
be
to
the golden
5 Coke nails.
No, I was gonna say it should be the golden Coke nail.
That was my first idea.
The golden
I
Coke
like that.
nail.
1 to 5 Coke nails.
1 to 5
1 to
beaver
5
bottles.
offensive stereotypes.
1 to 5 dropped apples.
1 to 5 John Stamens.
John
Yes.
Stamen's eyebrows. 1 to 5
Not
murdered
Stamens,
secret agent
Stamen.
fathers.
I like the 1 to 5 Coke nails, and then I think I'll think about it a little bit more. But then we're gonna do the gold star thing. I think I got something.
All right.
So yeah, what do you? If you guys had to rate it from a scale of 1 to 5 Coke nails, how would you rate it?
Well,
Well,
if I thought the movie was trying to be as bad as it was, I would rate it higher.
very high.
However,
It's that its purposeful intent makes it less quality.
yes, its purposeful intent just turns me off too much. So I will have to give this a 2 out of 5 Coke nails.
Oof. That's not a lot. That's just the normal amount of Coke nails on a all That's
Yeah,
rough.
that's base.
That's
Yeah.
rough.
That's
Coke nails used to
that's
kill.
2 pointy thumbs down from me.
All right, Keenan. What do you think? 1 to 5 Coke nails used to kill.
I'm around the same place as Jahnavi because it was so bad that it actually ended up kind of being entertaining in some aspects, but still offensive at the same time. But because of the production quality and pretty much everything in it, I'm also going to give it 2. I'd give it 1 if it wasn't funny to laugh at it, because as you know, there's some bad movies that like you watch and just like, wow, that was just bad.
If this was made as a bad movie, I'd be like, yes,
Ecstatic.
you nailed it.
Yeah, you got it. You found everything you needed, But like everything about it was just like whack, and there had to be a process of which someone had to confirm like decisions to be like they had to okay some things, and like they just the failsafe totally fell through
the cracks.
Yeah, it all fell to pieces. So I'm gonna give it 2 Coke nails.
Wow, that's lower than I thought it was gonna be, but I can understand
Hey
that.
man, that was me and Wizards, bro. I thought Wizards was gonna be like middle ground, but like I got the lowest rating one, I think.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I found this discussion quite engaging and entertaining.
Super fun.
Particular scenes in that, like, I too was just like, I find this quite humorous, but not because
But
the
not
lack
for the
of
reason they
intent was
think.
there. Like, going back to our earlier discussions, like, this was not crafted with intent of anything. Apparently,
That is a very good point. It's very obvious. I feel like there was no intent to this movie beyond to make movie. So next, I will have to award a gold star student.
Oh boy.
Which I think is gonna be very difficult. I think you guys, both of you guys, did an amazing job discussing.
Oh, we always do.
Giving a reward to the person who I think best. They have just criteria here. I think the person that best amplified the discussion. It was really forward.
I think
with it.
I am pretty much too young to die, so I think I exemplify.
So, but instead of a gold star student, I think it's going to be the golden half-filled Perrier.
The Golden Perrier bottle.
The golden Perrier.
Isn't
bottle.
that just champagne?
No. Gay.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was just dropped on the ground as what was her actual?
Do you mean Perry Gay?
Yeah, Perry Gay. I don't want to be offensive. It can't be Perry Gay. It's Perrier. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna give it to both of you.
Oh, can you do that?
We each got half a bottle of gold.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
this is great.
You guys get to split a bottle of John
Delicious.
Stamos's 1980, probably was shot in 1985 Perrier.
Don't drop it, or else when we see Vanya take her, take her top off.
Take her top off.
Because we don't want to drop it in
I
front
think-
of Vanity.
It's okay, we're safe. There are no apples.
No apples.
No apples. Oh, two half-eaten apples. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Maybe that's
you probably sell the half-eaten apples if you tell people it's junk.
But yeah, I think you guys both did an amazing job. I had a lot of fun discussing this stuff. I mean, I love this movie. I just as much love making fun of it for all of its random and many flaws as I do for like the kind of interesting bits in the middle. I really appreciate you guys looking at the movie. I always enjoy talking about bad movies, and I get to force people to do it occasionally. This is exactly what I wanted. But yeah, I think that about wraps.
I was just saying, at least you know that the movies show are bad movies, and people won't.
Oh yeah, they're bad movies, but I love.
Don't get me wrong, I love them too. But like I said, there's been a few things I've brought onto this program that I thought this is gonna be. It's weird, but they're gonna like it. And they're like, no. I'm like, ah.
Nope. So I don't know if you guys have any acceptance speeches or a quick. You both won, so.
Well, I want to say
words.
that I won this award fair and square. Okay, I had to watch that movie. I had to think about it. I think I've earned this half-eating apple.
I, in my acceptance speech, would like to, have an open query to John Stamos of how he feels about his role.
You're right, let's go nowadays.
I'm very
Probably
curious.
Google it.
I would like somebody to question him at some point about him reflecting on his career, about specifically Never Too Young to Die.
Sure.
I would assume that he refuses to talk about it.
Common briefing program. Can you go to share?
Somebody
how do you
tell John Stamos. We want to know.
Do you ever think about Never Too Young to Die?
No.
All right, but yeah, it's balls to the wall, crazy movie, and I love it. I think that about wraps it up. Thank you for listening to the Comic Geek Program. I'm your host, Ryan Mossbarger. You can find me in your dreams. That kind of weird dream when you wake up and you feel like you're in school and you're both naked and afraid.
And your pants are
I'll
made
be behind you.
Pudding.
That show is so dumb and wonderful.
I'll be behind you, and then I'll give you your underwear and I'll save you from that bad dream.
So this is just a Rick and Morty episode. Gotcha.
But yeah. And you can find me, like I said, in your dreams, where I'm saving you from terrible dreams, or at Ryan_MOSSB on Twitter. Again, I have been joined by.
I'm Jahnavi. I'm also on Twitter. Not super active, but at JKIR1 if you want to come say hello. And other than that, I'm just kind of around. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, hey, it's
living,
and it's also joined by me, Keen Codish. I'm sure you all are actively following. As you know, I'm not
keen and codish.
I'm not on Twitter because I'm in your hearts, and I really the thing is, but you'll find me running for office very soon on a very strict anti-vampire platform.
Very strict anti-vampire platform.
I will take it to all the pro-vampire politicians in Washington. I will make them make
ideology, schmideology.
Stop the feed in schools. No more vampires in schools. You heard me.
No more vampires. All right. Next week's episode will be hosted by, I believe,
yes,
Keenan,
it is.
right?
However, once again, it's a mystery, and you'll have to find out. Tune in to find out. It's so spooky. You'll never know.
Ooh, you gotta tune in to find out.
Yeah, that's right. It's a mystery.
But yeah, be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now, Friday, the 2 weeks after this, and I don't have it in my head what date it is. Give me 1 second. This isn't embarrassing at all.
I love how you said, John. I'm Jahnavi. As if, somehow when we looked away, you were replaced by a double game. And you're just like, oh, is that her name? Yes.
Well, there's Jahna-me, there's Jahna-A, Jahna-B, Jahna-C, you feel?
Jahna-you, Nothing Jahna-V, we're Jahna-you.
We call ourselves the Jahna-we.
The Jahna-we.
That sounds like a terrible band that I would totally listen to. Hey, we are Jahna-we, and we are here to rock you.
Be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now, Friday, April 12th. Anyway, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate you guys tuning in every other week. Please subscribe. share everything you can, and we'll talk to you at some point in the future. Probably 2 weeks from now. Well, at least some of us will. Keenan will be
You're
here.
never too young to listen
be
to
here.
CGP.
And you're never too young to die. So listen to all of CGP and then like spread us around a ton and make sure that we get like internet famous, which can be considered like D-list at best. And then we'll be real cool guys and we can go back to our high schools and be like, hey, what's up?
Oh yeah, I was on
I'm
Common
internet
Geeking
famous.
program. Perhaps you heard of it. No, I haven't. Oh, well, it's pretty big.
It's pretty big
It's
online.
pretty big
in
among
circles.
the 18 to 25 range. Look it up.
All right. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys for listening. And we hope to have you again real soon. Goodbye.
This episode of the Common Geeking Program is hosted by Ryan Mossbarger, joined by Jahnavi and Keenan Kodish. This episode is sponsored by all the amazing episode titles you guys gave me to choose from, though you did miss the opportunity for the potential sequel title to this film, Too Young to Die. I think we all know that was the obvious best choice for the potential sequel. The podcast is created and produced by Colin Ketchen and Jeff Leavitt, with this episode edited by me, Colin Ketchen, featuring original music also by me. Please follow at Geeking Program for engagement and news. We've been a bit lax, but I'm getting right back on it. So check back in 2 weeks, subscribe, share, and thank you for listening to this.
Did you just? You're okay.
Did it
Whatever.
work?
You want? No, fine.
I
Fine.
can't clap. I have to hold my phone to record.
I can't clap.
I can't. I'm sorry.
This sounds like a bad plot of like a Lifetime movie. She's a one-armed woman. He's a business executive.
What?
Well,
No, you never.
Why
You
are
know.
they always business executives? Can't be. No, actually, they're not.
All right,
Sometimes
fine.
they're.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
He's a one-armed man. She makes barrels for a living. Boom. So I feel like that's most Lifetime movies. They follow a very clear format of they are one thing, someone else is something else, but somehow they come together. It's like, how? But whatever.
she's a big city woman who just took control of a snow company. He's a lowly carpenter that works in a small town called Christmasvale. He's the foreman of the factory. She's the new management. They meet up together and discover the true meaning of Christmas in this year's Timber's Coming to Town.
Because her name is Timber. Perfect.
You do know that you have to make all of these movies that you formulaically describe, right?
Yeah, no, I can clearly, I can
There's
make
good
a
money in
movie
that.
about, he makes cocoa butter lotion at home, and she's in a punk rock band. Boom.
I don't know if you guys listen to My Brother and Me.
I
But-
listen to Adventure Zone mostly, and I
Yeah,
watched the little bits on YouTube for My Brother and Me. Those are pretty fun.